Longevity Junky is presented to you by our friends at Acast. Hello, Longevity Junky. It's time to get your fix. I'm Nikki Leigh, actress, model, and the OG Longevity Junky.
And I am Buck Joffrey. I'm former board-certified surgeon, a professional investor and entrepreneur, and probably most importantly for this show, a health-conscious hedonist.
I like the professional investor.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So this is our first show. This is very exciting.
I'm so excited.
Are you excited?
Oh my gosh. It's
Okay.
like a dream come true.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think you might have manifested the whole thing.
You know, I am a manifester.
No, I know you're a big believer.
Yes, I am. I'm a huge believer.
First of all, we are going to, I guess we could talk a little bit about our own journeys as longevity hackers, whatever you want to call it. We can talk a little bit about some news in the longevity space. Then we're going to have my friend Joel Rothman, who is head of, it's called the Center of Aging and Longevity at UCSB. And he's going to talk about something I think you're going to think is really cool, which is the prospect of potentially reversing aging. I'm not even just talking about slowing down aging, but reversing aging. And then we'll take it out from there, talk a little bit about some of the hacks that we've done on ourselves.
Oh, I love that. Yes. I'm like a living, breathing, biohacking nerd.
I know you are.
So bad.
But you're also lots of other things too, you know? And I understand that the latest thing you were was like a Viking or something like that. What's up?
Yeah, that is really interesting to say. So the latest thing you were was a Viking? Yeah, okay. This is true. Yes, I literally went to Norway and lived as a Viking. It was like about almost 10 days, and I literally dressed like a Viking. I cooked like a Viking. I like worshiped the Nordic gods like a Viking. I mean, it was insane. We went into.
Did you pillage some villages and do that sort of thing?
I
Or?
mean, I didn't. Damn it! That's what we were
War?
missing.
Yes.
Gosh darn it!
I thought that was a big part of it.
It is a big part of it. These other Vikings that were kind of leading the group of sorts, they were definitely like that.
Yeah.
It was like kind of intimidating sometimes. Yeah, they were like very manly men. Like it was crazy. Yeah.
How about the women? Did they look like you pretty much? Blonde, blue eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota, so I recognize the look.
Yeah.
Although, believe it or not, I'm not Nordic myself.
Oh, I thought you were about to tell me you were, and I was like, really? This is interesting.
No, I'm not. I was the one like growing up, I was like the one non-Norwegian guy in my school.
Is that right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, you stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I am in the business of investing, and I have an investor group. So we've had some funky stuff going on. We've had some real estate's been really slow, so we got into this business of buying some oil tankers.
Oh my God. Okay, that's unique.
In the Middle East. And we bought a couple. And then one, like almost immediately ran ashore.
Oh, it
So basically, I guess ran ashore, you know, I didn't even know what that meant, but I just kind of like ran on the land and it ruined the ship. And so now I think we're getting a new ship for that with insurance.
Oh my gosh.
But it's sort of
a nice little payday.
I guess kind of, maybe. We'll see.
You also bought yourself a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, well, so it was my birthday.
Well, yeah.
And great. I didn't I wanted
I'm
this.
Just jealous.
I wanted this car for so long. So long, and like literally looked in the windows all the time, and it's like every year I would be like, I want to get this, and then this year I was like, well, no one's gonna ever get this for me.
Right. That's true.
Right.
I told you could always put the money in my account. I'll buy it for you.
There you go. So I actually I got it for myself. I got it, and we went for a little spin yesterday.
That's super nice.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Oh my God.
It was good. Yeah. It's
love
really the sound.
Yes.
And also, by the way, I tried ketamine.
Did you?
Yeah, I did like a ketamine thing with a psychiatrist.
Oh my gosh, how'd that go? Actually,
that's cool. Super cool. I mean, so ketamine. We'll do a whole show on psychedelics and stuff. But ketamine's one of these. It's like
it's a horse tranquilizer.
Yeah, that's one of the things they use it for. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
funny.
It's an anesthetic, but it also creates these sort of, psychedelic kind of things. And I did it for the experience and also kind of feeling like sort of a little stuck. Not really. There's lots of reasons to do it.
Yeah, I want to know them.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of them like depression and things, but I really wasn't depressed as much as I was just feeling like I need a, I'm stuck, a little stuck.
How much did you take?
Well, I don't know how much. He just injected me a bunch of it. I was out.
A bunch of it? You were out?
I wasn't me. I wasn't me. I was like, have you seen The Matrix?
Yes.
It was like The Matrix. Like seriously, like feeling like nothing was real. And, like Neo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only thing I know about like K or ketamine, on the streets they call it K, is honestly they do, is a K-hole.
Yeah,
if you take too much, it's like, it's because it's a horse tranquilizer, right? Or that's one of the reasons they use it, or what the purposes they use it. I mean, you can literally just be like stuck, you can be stuck.
Yeah, you can be stuck.
Yeah, you could. So I'm wondering how, like, you're not functioning? Like, are you in this K-hole? Or
so
what are you
if you
doing?
take high enough doses of it, effectively what it does is, you just have a dissociative experience. Like you are not you. Like when I did this, I wasn't me.
So you went beyond the K-hole?
I think it was, I don't know. I'm sure it was past the K-hole.
Because
I couldn't have like driven myself home or something like
not.
that. It
You
was like,
cannot in a K-hole.
I wasn't really even me. So I wouldn't know where to find me.
This is so interesting.
Yeah. And so why do you do this is the question, right? So,
that was my next question.
yeah.
Actually.
So the idea behind it is that it stimulates. So you have the actual experience, but the experience is not really what you're after. You're after the neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity basically it allows for the growth of these neurons, new connections between neurons. So it's opening up your brain to new things and new experiences and stuff like that. Anyway, for me, it was like feeling like I wanted to see if I could kind of get unstuck, and it really worked.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Should
it was
I try
fantastic.
I
I would
should try
recommend it. I would recommend it to anybody, really.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a total guinea pig of sorts,
Well,
and I
you
go
are
out.
the junkie.
Yeah, I know.
You are
So I
the
need my
junkie.
fix.
Mm-hmm.
First, okay. I'm going to talk to your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's interesting. I
Well,
love that you're using it for that.
I know. I feel like I was already the guinea pig for our psychedelic show, but we are going to do guinea pig stuff, and we'll talk about it. At the end of the day, I'm kind of willing to do other things that I know are safe that could actually benefit me. Like, for example, and I know you are the same. In fact, speaking of psychedelics, you were talking about ayahuasca.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I actually did it.
You've done it?
I've done it, and I'm going to do it again. Yeah. And because it was such an incredible, like you're saying with the ketamine, like it's such an eye-opening experience that allows you to kind of just see other perspectives. It just brings, I feel, new neuroplasticity as well. And I mean, it's just, I think it's important. One of the reasons why we really are excited about this show and we feel like we have such value to it is because we are literal willing guinea pigs. We are willing to go out there, try the things that they're saying is the latest and greatest, and to advance our lives and advance longevity and be able to bring it to the people and have, and be like, we did this, be able to say that we did this as opposed to just talking about it. We be about it and we walk the walk and talk the talk.
We're
and I
the guinea pigs, the junkies, whatever you want to call
Yes, yeah,
it.
I know. I feel like junkies. Yes, we are definitely the junkies. This is hilarious.
Okay, so our next segment on our show is called, because we have segments. Yeah. We will have segments on this show.
Good for us.
Yes. It's called Have You Heard? Okay. So this is going to be kind of leeway into, what we're talking about in our guest today. But did you know that researchers actually have reversed the age of animals in the lab? It's one thing to say, I want to live longer and slow age and so on and so forth. It's another to say, I'm going to actually reverse this baby. We're going to reverse this baby. And that's super exciting to me because I feel like, I don't know. In terms of life, I don't know where you're at, but like I got divorced a few years ago. For me, I'm like starting all over, and it's kind of cool to think, man, I'm really just starting all over.
Yeah.
I could go way back.
I could go way back. That's so good. No,
yeah,
that's so good.
The idea is kind of cool, actually, because
it is an incredible idea.
The thought is that maybe in the next decade or two, that you could literally, that chronological age, the age that you and I actually are, and of course I'm 25 and you're 26.
Well done.
So
yeah, I'm 26. Did you just freaking add a year to me? What? Oh my god!
All right,
my partner, ladies and gentlemen. Jeez. Wow. Thanks for that.
Oh no, I'm just kidding.
No, you're fine.
So,
I don't care.
all right. So maybe a little bit more middle aged than that for me, at least. Not for you, but. But those numbers may be meaningless, and they may not. Imagine a world where it's not really about, like when somebody asks you how old you are, that's kind of like a weird question. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? How old am I? Right?
Yeah.
Like imagine being on a dating site, like a dating app, and they're like, instead of like writing your age, you write your biological age or your epigenetic age, which we'll talk about. Totally different world, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's coming. I do.
It's really funny that you just said this, because there was I signed up for a dating app and I was like, oh god, this is gonna be horrible. And I ended up like seeing this guy, and he was clearly like middle-aged, at least like around 50s, and the guy had the audacity to put like 37. And I was like, are you in what world? Because he's not even reversing his age. He doesn't even look younger. You know what I mean? And the guy's already putting this epigenetic age on there.
Although some people look a lot older than others at the same age. When you ever see somebody, this, I don't know about you, but have you ever seen somebody who you look at and you're like, man, that person is like, kind of looks bad, looks kind of old. Yeah. And then you find out that they're your age. Of course, that's probably never happened to you, but that has happened to me so many times, and it freaks me out. I'm like, wait, you're my age?
Yeah. No well, it gives a testament to how you're living your life and stuff, because it allows you to see, oh, well, this age can look so much better. Yeah.
So the story of that we were going to talk about a little bit was that, and this again this is going to the interview we're going to have, but there's literally this idea that there might be a cocktail of drugs that, at least in the lab, seems to have triggered some of these genes that reverse age. So it's going to be super cool. And I think from the standpoint of like, what does that mean for us? It means that we kind of need to reframe the entire concept of life for us, right? Like, think about it. Like, we kind of think of ourselves in going through phases of life. Mm-hmm. We're young. We don't even realize we're young because nobody does. Mm-hmm. And we're in our 20s and 30s. And the next thing you know, and you don't know about this one yet, but 40s, you get into your 40s and your middle age, and you're like, holy shit, what just happened? But then you're kind of like, you kind of are in this mode where you're just sailing along life, and you expect, well, eventually I'll be 60 and 70 and then, have grandkids, and then
it's like you plan everything out already, and you're like, well, or I always hear a lot of people wishing for the old days or like trying to like live in the past in their memory, but now it's actually going to be possible.
Well, and so if you think about it, if you knew that you were going to live to 200, well, maybe not you, because you kind of are living like, because you already kind of do everything, right? Yeah. You already do. But most people on the street, if they were like, okay, I'm going to live to 200, how would you behave differently?
I mean, you definitely need to
go to the dentist. You'd go to the dentist.
Yeah. Well, that's true too.
Right?
Yeah, because that's actually really funny. Yeah. A lot of people don't really do that, or that's really funny. But also you kind of have to watch yourself a little bit more. Like I feel like you're usually like young and reckless and things like that, but it's just kind of saying like, I don't care, I'm just going to go for it, and just, like you don't think of life as something that extensive, so you just kind of go balls to the wall.
You could throw in the white flag, right? Like you're like people are in their 60s and 70s, like, oh, whatever.
You have to take more responsibility.
Right. It's not just.
There's more accountability to a longer life.
Right. Like I can't just, say I'm going to live for, I'm it's not going to live for much longer anyway. So let's throw in the white flag.
It is amazing that you don't have that excuse anymore.
Yeah. Do you know people use that excuse?
Oh my God, my dad.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
See,
Dad,
that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah,
like
it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Honestly, and it really breaks my heart. Right. I'm always trying to be like, Dad, you don't know. Like, there's so much more life to live, but he's in this, little bucket of time that he's thinks like, that we're done at this time. At this point, I'm done. He
might as well live it up.
Yeah. Well, I wish that was really much more of it. But no, he's always talking about there's more years behind me than in front of me.
Right.
Yeah. And now that can go out the window.
Correct. So if you say this could happen maybe like within the next 20 years.
That's incredible.
Right? So if that's going to happen within the next 20 years, what do we got to do?
We definitely have to take care of ourselves.
We have to, right. We had a car. We got to make sure we take care of that car because we can't buy a new one for about 20 years.
Right. Definitely not the same model, make and model.
You would be the same make and model. You'd be the same. You just be an earlier version.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a lot younger.
Yeah.
I like the younger part.
It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage.
Okay, Indiana Jones.
Okay, so the good news is that I
thought that was good news.
That is good news, but the bad news is it might be 20 years away, and we got to do stuff about it. But there's even the follow-up good news to that is we already actually know a lot of things, a lot more what I would call low-hanging fruit, like a lot of information about longevity, and most people don't know about this stuff. And if you don't know about it and you learn about it and you start using it, you could probably add 10 years of good life to your lifespan or health span or whatever you want to call it right now. And so you don't have to, you don't have to just hope. You can actually actively do something to help, get there in good health right now. And that's part of what we're going to try to do. Is really try to tell people what's out there with the pillars of longevity.
Well, it also allows you to attack your life a lot better and healthier and with better choices because you can categorize them, right? So the pillars of longevity includes diet,
which is a tricky one,
which
very
is
challenging.
A very tricky one, especially A, in the United States. And B, like having all this processed food and also not being able to rely on what you're reading or like the advertisements that are happening on the packaging.
Well,
and things like that.
even the experts themselves have diametrically opposed opinions on the thing.
Gosh.
So it's really
There's so many diets out there. There's so many ways to go about it.
Exercise. I know you love to exercise.
I love it. I love getting a good sweat on.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I remember it's weird because that's a relatively new thing not new, but like I probably went during surgical residency and all these, probably a decade, 15, maybe 10, 15 years without even really thinking about exercise. It wasn't part of my life.
I feel like a lot of people, for instance, like my grandma or a lot of people's grandparents, they didn't go to the gym ever. And so that's another pillar. Sleep. I love sleep. I love it.
And sleep is huge. And this is actually funny because like, again, I was a surgical resident, and back in the day, we didn't think...
You didn't do that either?
We didn't do that. We didn't sleep. We didn't believe it.
I mean, honestly.
I didn't exercise. I didn't sleep.
Oh, you're just killing it.
But sleep was like... But, even in medicine, right? Like, we never thought... Like, in medical school, I wasn't really taught how important sleep was for longevity and stuff. We kind of thought about it as... We knew there's some stuff going on, but I think most doctors kind of treat it as, okay, you're going to just, like, turn the computer off overnight and turn it on in the morning, and that there was no real use for it. But now we know that sleep is probably just as important, if not more important than food.
Oh my gosh.
And you can actually survive less time without sleep than you can without food. So,
oh yeah, wow, that's incredible. Well, yeah, sleep is when you actually learn things. So it's kind of interesting that in school they're like having you pull all-nighters and do all these things, when actually when you're able to sleep and really get that 8 hours, you're actually downloading more of what you learned into your actual, I feel like, knowledge bank, I call it. And it allows you to be more knowledgeable and actually retain it and be able to show up.
Well, I was in neurosurgery, like a brain surgery resident, working over 100 hours a week. And it was it was crazy. It was just crazy. I just remember like being up all night long because there was some sort of trauma, something that happened.
And you're supposed to do surgeries on people, half a zombie?
Just a little brain surgery.
I'm like, what the hell? God, I want, if that ever happens, I'm doing any sort of brain surgery, like I'm the one receiving it, then I want to request a doctor that's just waking up like in the past, couple hours.
Put an Aura ring on the doctor and follow it overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
Aura rings on it.
We love that.
Drugs and supplements are a huge one. And we'll do an entire thing on that, of course. We don't need to get into that right now, but I have a giant like like grandpa's pill box.
Yes.
Right? Full of these things. I know, I showed you mine. You need to get a big, yours just wasn't big enough.
Yeah, I know.
You just had like a little teensy one.
I mean, I thought I was going big.
Mine's like a Buick.
Yeah.
It's like the Buick version of the pill box.
Oh my God. And my favorite last pillar of longevity is social interactions, like community and connecting with others. I mean, we're social creatures.
Yep.
Yeah. It really matters. Having those people you love and having those trips with people, dinner parties, whatever, just any way to get together and communicate and share, feelings and connections. Yeah.
I'll add one more to that pillar, which is what one of my favorites in this space, Peter Attia, calls Medicine 3.0. And Medicine 3.0, the idea with Medicine 3.0 is this, that the Medicine 1.0 is like when we were using leeches and, we were bleeding people when they were sick. We really didn't have a lot of science. And then...
Yeah, clearly.
Well, we had to use what we had to use. And then we had Medicine 2.0, which is kind of lasted for the last, over 100 years, which is we have some technology, but we kind of play defense, right? It's pretty much all we do. And then Medicine 3.0 is what, Peter calls it. And I think of it more just as offensive medicine, right? Like instead of playing defense all the time, it's about playing offense. Right.
It's like
it's like we just talked about sleep, right?
Yeah.
And are you wearing your Aura ring? You lost yours. You lost your Aura ring.
Just recently.
Yeah. So I'm wearing my Aura ring. You normally wear it, but this is monitoring my sleep and some of my exercise every day. So so Medicine 3.0 is playing offense, and one of the big things is using these technologies like we have, like Aura rings. It's like,
I love monitoring.
Full body MRIs.
Yeah.
It's like a gamification too, right? Like it helps you get feedback. People use, Apple Watches all the time. I prefer Rolex, but
me too.
but using these sort of feedback mechanisms to actually watch your own health and try to correct it in real time.
Yeah, as opposed to like waiting. Well, again, there you go. You wouldn't even know to contact a doctor. You just have to wait till something doesn't feel right. So then contact the doctor. And this way you can, like you're saying, in real time, actually help your body be the better version of yourself.
Great example of that is like I had like a genetic test as part of many things, and I had a mutation in a gene that actually 30%, 1 in 3 of the population has. It's called the MTHFR gene, and that what that does is if you have a mutation in it, you end up with too much homocysteine in your blood, and that can lead to cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, all sorts of disease processes. So the bad news is I had this mutation, the third of the population has. The good news is all I had to do is take a B vitamin, methylfolate. Yeah, and that solves the problem. That is like nothing that in the old days that a doctor would just order. Right? Like, why would they? There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
And
how did you even find that out, by the way?
Oh, it was just like, a huge amount of testing that I just get done, right? Because
okay.
It's all part of this
taking responsibility of your life.
3.0. It's medicine 3.0 is what it is.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk all about actually reversing biological age with Dr. Joel Rothman. Welcome back to Longevity Junky.
So we had an opportunity to talk about the idea of age reversal with my friend Dr. Joel Rothman. And we're going to go to that right now in a segment that we call The Breakdown.
Well, the buck stops here for a moment at least. And Nikki, I want to introduce you and our audience to my friend, Dr. Joel Rothman. He is a professor at the University of California at Santa Barbara. And he's also the head of the Center of Aging and Longevity Studies there. And we've actually been talking a lot, trying to integrate some of the things that we know on the clinical level, because I'm a physician and he is obviously in the lab. And I think some of the answers that we're going to get are not going to come from your doctor, but they're going to start out from the lab. My friend Joel, how are you?
I'm doing well, getting older every day, but training.
Well, yes.
Well, hello, Dr. Joel. It's very nice to meet you. I'm Nikki.
I'm usually called Dr. Joel only by people from the Indian subcontinent.
Why did I know that? But, you learn something every day.
Yeah, but no, we just went over the fact that she's a Viking. I think you're confused because I'm the Indian subcontinent. I mean, no one's ever going to say you're going to be lazy about this, right, Joel? I mean, you've got plenty of reason other than to publish papers to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, my motivation for studying the foundations of aging and trying to figure out ways to intervene with it in as much as we can forestall the suffering that occurs, especially late in age, becomes stronger as I get closer to that age. So
one of the things that Nikki and I have been talking about when I've been explaining is this whole concept of biological age and how, this idea of being able to slow down or even reverse aging. You want to talk a little bit about that and kind of tell us what's real?
Well, we have transitioned, I think, from a state of what was probably science fiction into a state of rigorous science now, over the last 3 decades, and particularly the last 10 or so, where we're seeing that aging, first of all, is, as we thought, a very complex process, but not a complex process that can't be intervened in. And it's been possible now to certainly in experimental laboratory model animals across the evolutionary spectrum, to slow down the rate of aging. I guess I will say that each organism has its own intrinsic rate of aging, what we can call an aging clock, which tends to mean a couple different things. And it is possible to intervene in that aging clock, both by changing genes, changing the genetics of the animal, the genome of the animal, and also through interventions, pharmaceutical interventions, drugs. So it's not just worms now. So these discoveries have translated to animals across the animal kingdom, most importantly, mammals, mice.
Great, because we're mammals.
Yeah, we are. We're mammals.
Glad it went into our species.
And actually, in your age group, Nikki, this is going to have a particularly profound impact.
What are you saying about me when you say that, Joel? Come on.
You too, Buck. But I'm kind of ahead of you there. So we are going to be able to slow down the rate of aging, I think, through chemical treatment. So I talked about genetics. And in fact, we may be able to manipulate our genetics using gene therapy, but drugs can mimic the effects of these genetic changes. And that's why clinical trials are going on with such drugs right now with humans.
Yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit earlier. And so, by the way, I told you so. I wasn't just trying to impress you, Nikki.
I'll sign up if you need, if you want help, like seeing the in action. I'll sign up too if you need more people.
You will have time to. So now there are really exciting results coming out showing that actually may well be true. Perhaps the most striking of these is by applying a set of proteins called Yamanaka factors that, when turned on in cells, actually can reverse signs of aging in those cells. And of course, these are now being looked at in animal studies, and there's evidence that some signs of aging can be reversed in animals as well. These factors, the Yamanaka factors, there was a Nobel Prize after their discoverer, Yamanaka, for this, were first known to be able to take cells that are specialized cells, and turn them back into these young-like cells that can actually turn into a new embryo. But they also have this ability to essentially turn our cells a bit back into a younger state. And I think that's a really exciting advance. I certainly, if you look at specific aging effects, you can reverse elements of aging, certainly in test tubes, certainly in model animals. And so I think this is really exciting, but what we'd like to be able to do, so that's by actually manipulating genes. Manipulating our genes is tough to do. We will probably get there with gene therapy methods, but that's still tough to do. But what we would like to do is mimic that through drugs, because drugs are available. You can stick them in your body right away. And there are studies that just came out in the last month or so that showed, in fact, that there is a cocktail of chemicals, which we would call drugs if we start to use them, that actually can have the same effect, that it can, at least in cells that are grown in a lab, can actually reverse signs of aging in those cells. So we have...
So that could actually come to the people.
Yeah. That's always the question that arises, and I'm very nervous about putting a time on it. I would say that the science has advanced so quickly, it would not shock me if in the next decade or two, we'll start to see these things being tried in humans. They'll be tried in animal models first. And so is it possible we'll have clinical trials for drugs that reverse aspects of aging, or certainly at least slow aging? That's already going on. Slowing aging, that's already going on with older people. Reverse aging, is it possible in the next 10 to 20 years? I would say definitely.
There are ethical considerations around this entire thing that, okay, I mean, that's not been the forefront of what I've been thinking about, but man, every time this conversation comes up, we even did a fundraiser at my house where we got a bunch of people interested in what you're doing. And I was amazed. A lot of people were like, well, why are we going to do this? Why would we do this? And is this ethical to do? So what's your take on that?
So I run into this all the time. I go home every day and I have to face my wife when she says, do you want to extend everybody's life? That is not my primary goal. My primary goal
some of them.
Well, that's true too. My primary goal is to extend the period of life in which we're vibrant and having fun and enjoying life and feeling healthy and can enjoy our loved ones, and I can chase my granddaughter around the room. That's the goal. And what we hope we could achieve is stretch that period of what we call health span, the period in which we're youthful and disease-free, as much as possible, and maybe achieve what's called morbidity compression. That is to say, instead of stretching the period where we're in decline, we can hope that decline happens rapidly. So that's really our strong drive. But nonetheless, there is this there is a very serious ethical issue that we have to discuss.
You can introduce all of these pills and whatnot till your face turns blue. But if the person isn't going to actually live a happier, healthier lifestyle or have better mentality and take care of themselves, it sounds like this isn't a miracle drug, right? This isn't a miracle thing that's going to instantly reverse your age if you don't take care of yourself. Like, you can't go out partying, drinking a bunch of alcohol, poisoning yourself, being depressed and hating the world, and at the same time be taking these cocktails and it's going to reverse your age.
So what you're saying is certainly true right now. And for example, you mentioned alcohol. High levels of alcohol consumption have been shown directly to speed up the aging clock, this epigenetic clock that I was talking about. You can actually see it happening in your genome, which is a little frightening. But the sorts of interventions that we're talking about, both potentially gene therapy and drugs, may make it possible, I just want to say, may make it possible that people with poor behaviors, the kinds of behaviors you're talking about, may nonetheless benefit and therefore may experience a longer period of health span, even though they have maybe not, even though they've eaten lots of Big Macs, for example. This is not something we particularly want, but it is, we could probably live a dirtier life and with these drugs and live longer.
The other part of the ethical thing, Joel, that I think that people miss the point on, and maybe you can comment on this, is that was it unethical for us to start giving people vaccinations and antibiotics so they didn't die of polio or of strep throat, right?
And yeah, okay, this brings up a really important point that we think about. So the question is, should we, and we actually hosted a debate on this at UCSB not too long ago, should we extend healthy longevity? And of course, a lot of people are uncomfortable with the notion for a lot of reasons. The most obvious ones are, one, the impact on the planet and the human population. People say we already have too many people. If old folks are going to live longer and longer, we're going to have yet more people. So I'll take that one on first. There's two arguments I have for that. One, first of all, the effect on population growth is relatively modest because the effect is on post-reproductive people. They've already had their children. So if I live a lot longer, I'm going to increase the world's population a little bit, people like me, but not like if you save babies, for example. And that's what we have done for the last 100 years. That is, we've decreased infant mortality enormously. We have doubled life expectancy, largely through infant mortality. When we decrease infant mortality, if an infant lives, they produce children, and those children produce children, and that results in what's called exponential growth. So the question, we're talking about doing has a much more minor effect than the effect of saving babies. Now, the last 150 years of technology has saved enormous numbers of babies, and that's why we've gone from 1 billion people to 8 billion people in the last 100 and something years. If we were still 1 billion people, I don't think we'd have the climate crisis we're dealing with. Should we go back in time and say, hey, don't save babies? This is a bad thing because we're going to cause an increase in the population growth. Same with antibiotics, same with all the other modern technologies that have greatly extended our lifespans. I would argue that this is just another part of that continuum, and we are constantly working on ways to make people's lives better, and this is one of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The other issue, which is a serious one, is the income disparity problem. So this technology, especially if it's expensive, and it probably will be at first, is going to favor, of course, the wealthy. And it might be initially the extremely wealthy. So that should give everyone, I think, a tremendous feeling of discomfort. Should somebody who's very wealthy have the right to live twice as long, for example, as somebody who doesn't have the money? Now, that's already true. That is already true. The underclass does not have the same life expectancy for all sorts of reasons. What I will say, I would argue that becomes a self-correcting problem.
Yeah, like computers and cell phones.
So the first cell phones were available pretty much only to the wealthy, right? Everybody in the world almost has one now. So I would argue that problem is somewhat temporary. I don't know how long it'll take, but the market-driven forces in our society will make sure that these technologies that everybody's going to want to have become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and will become accessible to everyone.
One thing I want to point out is that it may not be as expensive as we think. Because if you look at like what's in those cocktails that we were talking about in those paper, those drugs are, I mean, they're already out, right? They're not like, bazillion dollar drugs that we're talking about. They're just about putting certain amounts of them together.
Absolutely. So rapamycin is the most prominent one, I would say. Metformin is another one that has, there's some mixed debates on this. These drugs are, these have been prescribed for a long time because, anytime you develop a new drug, it's very, very expensive at the beginning, and then you scale up the manufacturing and you have a much higher base of people purchasing it, the prices drop. So if it's drug-based, it's going to get cheap.
I was thinking your input is really important. Like with your heart, like it really matters what you listen to, the words you say, how your heart feels. And that to me felt like something that was precursor of aging or that pillar of health.
So there's actually biological reasons to support what you're saying. So stress, for example, is associated with speeding up the aging program. It's clear that people who listen to music, for example, and certainly people who have loved ones around them live longer, and we can begin to understand what's actually happening at the cellular and biological levels because of those sorts of influences. So I think maybe that's what you're referring to.
Is there a big breakthrough, in your opinion, that you're most excited about that's happening in longevity?
The Yamanaka factor thing that I spoke about, the idea that you can kind of reprogram cells. Yamanaka factors are involved in reprogramming cells, making them do something different. The fact that you can reprogram them from an older cell to a younger cell, that is a really exciting breakthrough. Now, how soon will that affect humans? We don't know, but the biological observations are there. And that says, first of all, that it looks like slowing down and perhaps even reversing aspects of aging is tenable. It can occur. And second of all, that we have a way to do that. So I think, and then with the recent discovery that they're actually compounds, drugs, chemicals that acting in a cocktail can have the same sorts of effects. Those are big advances. There are more than 100 biotechnology companies working on these problems, pharmaceuticals, and of course research centers like ours all over the world working on this. So there are many other avenues, but those are the ones recently that I find most exciting.
You know, people don't really buy the idea that necessarily that you could go from an average lifespan of 78 to 500, for example. But okay, so all right, well that's a tough one to swallow. But there are organisms, right? There are literally organisms that right now currently live hundreds of years longer than we do on average. So I guess the question is why, and is that something that we could kind of borrow from?
That's right. And what I will say is if we look in the natural world, first of all, we see these widely varying lifespans in different creatures, but we also have our own immortality within us. That is to say, the cells that we produce that produce the next generation. When I had children, of course, I had cells that effectively are immortal because that is passed on forever. As long as we have a sustainable planet, immortality is achieved at the level of cells. What if we can reactivate that sort of immortality within our own cells? Now, I'm not saying I want to make immortal people, but certainly the closer we can get to that, the more we can slow down the aging rate of aging and, frankly, extend longevity. Do I think there will be 500-year-old humans someday?
Do you? Answer the question.
I actually do. But
wow,
that depends on, first of all, a habitable planet.
Right.
Second of all, we don't blow ourselves up in a nuclear war or whatever else, an epidemic that we can't handle. And third of all, I don't know how long it's going to be. But if you give me enough time, I think that will be achievable.
I just want to say that you saying that we have immortality already within us is a super profound statement. And also something that I would just invite every listener out there to find a little heaven in. I think that is a beautiful thing.
It's also just science.
Like science. There you go.
Biologically true.
I love that.
It's beautiful, but it's also science.
That's great. Not to dull the poetic image, but in fact, it's science.
We had to ruin that moment for
Even
us.
so, no, it was not. I know. Well, anyone can just reverse it and relive it. But I just think that, I think that's great. I think that's even something so profound and beautiful and just so centering and balanced is also science. I think that's a beautiful duality.
I'll say something as a scientist, which I don't know if a lot of scientists would be comfortable saying this. So I, in many ways, feel spiritual. Now, I don't ascribe to any religious beliefs, and my belief in how we got here is very much driven by our scientific understanding of that. The Big Bang happened, and then the properties of the universe were set in place such that 13.7 billion years later, some of the matter rearranged itself in a way that could go look and figure out how they got there, could actually figure out that the Big Bang exists, just the rearrangement of matter, which is really striking to me. But what I was going to say is, to me, science has a tremendous beauty. It's a deeply moving, poetic experience, actually, to be part of science, to understand scientific explanations for who we are. So I don't see those conflicting at all in any way. The feeling of poetry, spirituality, music, and science. I think it as a scientist, I feel deeply moved by thinking about science and thinking about how we understand how life works and how the universe works.
I love that.
Joel, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great.
So much respect to you, and thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Really fun.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our healthy takeout. Welcome back, Longevity Junkies. I love your friend, Dr. Joel.
Yeah, he's a good guy, isn't he?
He's so awesome.
Yeah, and he's smart. He's a very smart dude, and I like how he's so optimistic. And you know, it's actually we need scientists like him because I mean, this is very creative space. It's still molecular biology. It's still, hard science, but you have to have people who can think out of the box.
Open-minded.
Yeah.
He's so open-minded, and he's able to really connect, there's so many options out there, and he's willing to hear them all.
Yeah.
All right, time for healthy takeout.
Every show we are going to talk a little bit about what we are doing as the human guinea pigs, as the junkies that we are.
Yes.
And in this case, it's not something that we are going to try, but we already are both
doing it.
We're both taking this. It's a drug. It's called rapamycin, right? We're taking it once a week. Unfortunately, this is not a drug that is available to everybody. Like, you can't just order it, right? You do need to have a doctor who's kind of on board with this stuff. The reason we're both doing this is because, as we mentioned in the interview, this is probably the only drug that we know across species has consistently shown to slow the aging process. Is it doing? I mean, can you feel anything from this or no?
Isn't it on like a cellular level?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like I try so many things
I
that
know.
I don't
Who
know
knows?
if it is exactly that or not.
Yeah.
But if you have the science to back it up, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's interesting because wait, you did an epigenetic test recently.
Oh yeah.
I think you were telling me about that. It was one of Dr. Sinclair's companies.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because that very much relates to this.
Yeah, and it was very surprising too. So let's see. I would say about the end of last year, about I don't know, I guess we could say 6-7 months ago. I took this test called, it's under Tally Health, which is under Dr. Sinclair's company. And it gave me an epigenetic age. I did a cheek swab, and I answered a few questions about what I'm doing, what my diet is, or what my exercise regime is, or how much sleep I'm getting, all the pillars that we talked about earlier. And then it, does its lab thing and came up with an epigenetic age. Now, about that time ago, 7 months ago or so, I was actually older than my biological age, which tripped me out. I was so pissed too, because I'm like, I do so much.
Right. So when you took the test originally, your epigenetic age, which is the age that he just described, that you're looking at with the DNA methylation, the changes in the epigenome, put you 1 year older. And then what happened?
And then because they want you to do it, every so many months so that you can make changes in real time, and then you can clock that in and see if you're doing the right things or not, right? And so I did one about a month ago, and I turned it in, and I have I have an entirely new diet, exercise, absolutely everything. And I am now 3 years younger.
Yeah. So you went down.
I legitimately reversed.
You went
my
by
age.
4 years. So
I went down by 4 years. Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
What's interesting though, I mean, again, this is a great example of part of that whole playing offense thing, right? Because first of all, you have data. Part of this whole Medicine 3.0 thing is about actually learning where you're at right now ahead of time, so you can do something about it.
Yeah.
So you literally were able to say, my baseline is this, I'm going to make some interventions, some changes, and then look at the result of that. It's sort of like a gamification of the whole thing. Yeah. And that's what this whole new medicine is all about, playing offense. Listen, at the end of the day, no one would really, who would want to know their epigenetic age if you couldn't do anything about it? This thing is basically telling you when you're going to die.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So why would you ever want to know that unless you could actually intervene in that? And that's exactly what you're doing.
Unless you can use it to your advantage. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're being a good guinea pig. You didn't even realize you were being the guinea pig.
I didn't really even know signing up for that because it was before this obviously started. So that's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it is. Perfect. All right, we're wrapping it up here. This is when we're getting ready to order some healthy takeout. Healthy takeout it is. So why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. Well, taking away from this episode, one of the things that actually touched me the most was seeing how a scientist can be so open-minded and deeply spiritual and let each coexist. Because usually you hear, it's science or it's belief in God or whatever it is. And it's usually just it's so ripped apart. It's not able to coexist. And it's that is really confusing for a lot of people. And it makes conversation really tough to have when we're talking about things like this. And I feel like it just pigeonholes a lot of people. And this is allowing everyone to see that there is somebody who's doing so much research in the lab and has so much evidence, and then yet has such a beautiful open mind and is able to allow everyone to have a seat at the table.
Right. So you can be spiritual and scientific at the same time.
Yeah.
I guess another takeout for me, I think the big one in some ways is that if you're going to be around for much longer than you think, and if you might end up living for, 150 years instead of 85, you got to treat your body differently. Like we said, we got to go to the dentist. We have to do all those things and not feel like, you're in your 60s and, maybe you have 25 years left max.
Well, that you're always at a decline.
Right. So reframe your existence now with the idea that you may have a very good chance of living a much longer time.
Yeah, take care of the body that you're actually in.
Yeah. And then again, as a follow-up to that, I would just say that we talked about all of these core pillars that are part of maintaining that car that you got right now.
Yeah.
And take advantage of the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, get out there and exercise. I couldn't recommend having 8 hours of sleep more. I mean, it really allows you to show up each day. It allows your body to recharge 100%. And I think that just sleep is so underrated. It's incredible.
Yeah, and we're going to get to all those pillars because we're just getting started with this show. So I would just say, for those people who for this stuff is new for, which is probably a lot of people. I mean, we live in California and everybody's kind of, crazy about this stuff, and it's maybe not as new for a lot of people. But for a lot of people, this is brand new. Use our podcast as a platform to get started on this journey and listen to us because we're just getting started.
Yes.
Would you read us out from the first episode, Nikki?
Longevity Junky is created by Dr. Buck Joffrey, MD, and Timothy Fornara. It is executive produced by me, Nikki Leigh, Buck Joffrey, and Timothy Fornara. The show is produced by Pretty Fast, original music by Alloy Tracks with mixing by Jay Palezzi, and we're distributed by our friends at Acast. See you next time.